All right, welcome back. Episode 24 of the White Oak Collective podcast. Austin, we got I thought about it as we started that intro. I think I did it 2 weeks ago and you just did it there, but we can't be sucking up our nose right there when we start the music because we've done that twice. People probably think it's part of our intro music now, but it's not. So I'm going to let Austin kind of run this one today. We've got the Forestry Commission on. Last year we had them on, and I was okay. Austin had them on last year, and I was turkey hunting. Yeah. So I had things to be doing.
So Kevin Kraft and Meacham Harlow are back with us this time, and we spent I think we spent about 3 hours together last year, and it was one of my favorite ones I did last year because we covered a lot of stuff, and I thought it was cool. I learned a bunch that last one.
Yeah, so I listened to it like it wasn't our own podcast since I wasn't on it, and I felt like it was a college class or something. It was good.
Too deep in
it was good.
Too deep into everything.
But I'm glad I'm here to keep Austin from getting too into the weeds. But anyway, whichever one of y'all want to go first, y'all want to introduce yourself and just kind of give a quick little bio.
All right. Yes, I'm Meacham Harlow, and I am the Region 3 Information and Outreach Officer. And I started working with the commission in 2013. And throughout that time, I started as the Region 4 Outreach and Information Officer and then moved into urban forestry for a little while, became a certified arborist through that time, and then left there and applied for the Region 3 Outreach and Information job. So, and I got that and have been doing that ever since. So that's a little bit about me.
Kevin?
Yeah, well, on my side, with kind of a little different background, I started out, went to Jones Junior College for 2 years. People always ask me, how I got into forestry, and I've always loved being outside, just like a lot of the listeners and everything, love being outdoors. And I noticed that I could get to not be in a classroom for 3 days in forestry, so that's why I signed up for forestry and loved it. Well, I started also in 2013 with the Mississippi Forestry Commission, but I started in a little different avenue than Meacham did. I actually started as a Ranger 1 position, which is our entry-level position, straight out of high school, no high school diploma. So I started out there. Just wanted to move home and have a job closer to the house. I ended up getting to be a Ranger 1 where I was walking behind the bulldozer and helping out wherever I could in timber management. And then I took a job in Lamar County as a technician, which is our entry-level supervisor position, does a lot of timber cruising and actually using my degree, and started dozer operating for 8 years. And then 3 years ago, I took the outreach and information job for Region 4, which is the South 20 County, just essentially draw a line across Hattiesburg South. That's the region that I cover for public outreach, and I've been doing that for 3 years. And just trying to get the word out about what the Mississippi Forestry Commission does.
So if you're watching, we've also got Smokey the Bear in here. Y'all want to mention why you brought him, why he's in here?
Yeah, so this year, Smokey turns 80, and his birthday is August 9th, and we are celebrating up until that. So he's coming to the events with us, and we're just kind of promoting him.
He's got a full year-long birthday party going on.
And exactly.
So that's all, the whole Smokey the Bear thing, that's all basically, that's just wildfire prevention, just kind of teaching the do's and don'ts with wildfires and all that. So okay.
You remember her saying?
Only you can prevent wildfire? That's it. I guess y'all are running a commercial right now or something, or radio or TV or something, because I saw it, or I heard it the other day. So,
well, last time when we went, like, it was, if anybody wants to listen to our first episode, it was like episode 5 on our feed. It was March 28th, and you go back and look at it. And so this time I think we're going to try to maybe be a little bit more encompassing of different things that are going on, talk about some stuff this past year that happened. I think this last year was an interesting year kind of in the forestry world, but like we did a deep dive into like the prescribed burn manager course. We went into, we talked about the urban forestry program, which I thought was cool, something I didn't realize last year. I'm trying to remember what else we talked about. Invasives. We talked about different programs that were out there. We talked about services that were out there. And I do want to touch on some of those kind of at the end just to like refresh that with people. But I don't know that this time we'll go into it. I think we've already kind of done. If you're interested in the burn manager course, obviously that's out there as a resource. You can hear a lot about it. I mean, we talked about it probably for an hour and a half.
Yeah, in the last couple of weeks on social media and YouTube and everywhere, I've had a ton of people ask me about burning, prescribed fire, the prescribed fire course, all that. So I would urge you, if you didn't listen to that first one, go back and listen to that, because if you want to know basically everything about burning, you'll get it in that first podcast.
And I don't know if is there any changes or updates that have happened with that program?
Yeah, the one change, I don't remember if it was before or after our last podcast here, but that you can either do a 1-day class now, which means you can take all your prerequisite classes online just like that you could before during the COVID years. And now they've also changed it to where you can go back to the full 3-day. Both of them are really good classes. The 1-day, for somebody who don't have a whole lot of time to spend with it, they can do all their stuff at the house, come for the 1-day class and get the same certificate you do with the 3-day. But the 3-day, you get a little bit more time with the instructors and the training officers. You get a little bit more time with like-minded people. So you get to get a little more war stories in there and all that. But you can take either one now. You can sign up for either course, either the 1-day or the 3-day.
Yeah, I took the 1-day. I guess it was probably around 2020 or whatever when I took mine. But then I've got a agent that works here with me, and he took the Alabama class too. And he said it was like 3 days or so, and he said he learned a ton. So I'm sure that the Mississippi 3-day, now that it's back, is the same way, where you learn just kind of, I guess it's just not all compressed into 1 day and having to kind of fly over stuff.
Is there getting time with the instructors and getting a more stories from them and more training, and both of them are really good classes, but it all depends on how much time you have to spend with the trainers.
Yeah. Is there any outdoor component to the 3-day one, or is it still is it all inside coursework?
As of right now, it's still all classroom. There is some talk or trying to get some more outdoor stuff in it, but as of right now, it's all classroom.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Austin, I'll kind of let you head this one up since you put together the rundown, and I'll jump in where I can. So
okay,
you go ahead.
Well, first off, I think one of the things we wanted to talk about, and having y'all in earlier this year than we did last time. I think last time when we recorded, it was right at the end of March, so it was kind of toward the tail end of it. But a couple of years ago, I guess it was like 2022 or something like that, Tate Reeves designated March as Fire Prevention Month. And so I know we had talked a little bit, I guess, beforehand about this is y'all's month, kind of being the spotlight. This is when we start seeing a lot of, or I guess a lot of informational stuff on the wildfire prevention. Y'all got anything going on with that?
I mean, as we found out in August and September, we can have fires year round here in Mississippi, but on average, March is our normal high fire danger, high fire risk. It's mainly due to the low humidity, lower wind, the dead fuels. It's just, and that's what, when we think about fuel, we're thinking about grass and pine straw, not gas and diesel.
Right.
So it's just everything set up in the month of March to have a higher fire occurrence. We just want to keep in the forefront of everyone's mind about we can still have wildfires. So don't burn on the windy days. Make sure that you're watching all outdoor burning, especially year round, but especially during the month of March, because all the weather factors are there.
I hadn't thought about that, but low humidity, green up really hadn't happened yet. You got windier days. It probably is the perfect combination of everything.
Yeah, and unless we get significant rainfall in the month of March, stuff dries out extremely quick in the month of March. We could have, an inch of rain, and then 3 or 4 days later of 20% humidity, 25% humidity, 15-mile-an-hour winds, a wildfire is going to carry through that.
Right.
Yeah, and I didn't think about it. I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head right now. This, tell me if I'm dead wrong. But with spring coming in too, I guess you've got more people wanting to go clean up their yards and burn their piles and all that. So just more people out burning and doing stuff like that.
100%. That's definitely right, because there's always somebody, they really don't want to do it during December. You got Christmas and all that. And once you get into that February, March, it's not really deer season yet. It's not really turkey season. So people want to get out there and clean up their yards and trim limbs that need to be trimmed, and all the dead, limbs that fell in the yard. They want to get out there and clean that up. So yes, that's 100%. The only other thing about March wildfire too is we also have our Firewise program that really teaches the landowner how really gets in the weeds, and you can look it up on our website. I'm not going to get too much into it and give a class on it today, but our Firewise program teaches the landowner how to prepare their house in the event of a wildfire coming at it. You know, keep your pine straw raked off from October to April. Make sure you clean your roof off, clean your gutters out there in that time of year. You might not want to put that, nice flammable tree right up next to your house. So all that stuff, that Firewise program helps out with that. That's something they can pre-prepare for.
Well, that I actually was looking at that. I guess kind of prepping for this, and when you see like the wording and all, like the people living in the urban wildlife interface and all that. Well, I don't know if everybody's like that, but to me, like that's when I'm picturing the Southwest, California. People like you picture the big wildfire areas, people moving out into more rural places, and I don't think about us, but I mean that's the way our counties are set up. Everybody lives in the kind of that, I guess, urban wildlife, whatever zone, whatever. I can't remember exactly what the wording was behind it.
The WUI.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
WUI, the Wildlife Urban Interface. And you're right. So you see all these forests, and then you see them being cut down, and then subdivisions being put in. And so that's considered the WUI. And so these fires that are normally, it's normal for them to occur in that area, then they put houses there, neighborhoods, and people just don't think about it. And then they have the woods backed up to the back of their house,
Well, that's, I mean, to me, like, yeah, I picture that somewhere else. And I've never thought about that until I was reading it, getting ready for this. I never been like, oh wait, that's spot on what we're doing.
And that's the number one thing about this Firewise program. When we go out to a wildfire, when your wildland firefighters pull up to your house, the first thing we're going to do is try to protect the human life. That's the number one that we're going to try to protect. And then we're worried about your structure. Well, if you haven't taken steps to protect your structure before we ever get there, it makes it a little harder on us and our rural fire departments to work so hard to save these structures in life. And the thing about it is safety is a big thing for us. We don't want your house to burn down, but we also don't want to get hurt in the process of trying to save it. So it's just, we got to make sure that if we can do stuff beforehand, it makes everybody's life easier, and it helps us protect your investment.
Yeah. So talking about March, but then last year going into, let's say, late summer, early fall, it was just super, super, super dry. Was last year kind of a outlier as far as forest fires, or was it kind of in line with every year? Did the drought affect the fires last year?
Yes, the drought, that was a very unusual year for us to have that August, September, and October drought. I mean, I was seeing fire, like I started in 2013 fighting fire. I seen fire in August and September that I haven't seen in my years here.
Yeah.
We were getting, you got to think, it didn't rain for how many days? We was in a 20-inch rain deficit at a lot of the times in September, and anything would burn there. It didn't take, that's why we was under the burn ban for so long. So I was seeing fire. That's abnormal for that time of year to have that kind of fire weather and fire behavior.
Well, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I think we were talking beforehand. My wife's family's from South Mississippi. I want to say I remember like we kind of rain started kind of drying up around July, maybe into June, something like that. But I remember them they were started in May or so. It started drying up down there in that southwest corner, and just kind of spread from the southwest side up to east central.
Yeah. And the way our fire management officer, Randy Giachelli, does, and all wildland firefighters in the state, we started noticing a drying effect about July. It's over Texas and it's headed our way. So they start preparing our wildland firefighters. We start preparing equipment to contain fires that need to be contained. And we really started planning for it in July when this started happening. So we was starting to get prepared for it before the drought actually hit in August.
Yeah.
So it's early July. And
we actually got to a 25-inch deficit in rain, and that caused a lot of the fires restarts. Well, if you think about it, 25 inches in the soil, that's where all the feeder roots are. Mm-hmm. And so we were seeing a lot of restarts from the fire being still going on under the ground. And then we were fighting fire above ground too.
Gotcha.
So we were fighting that.
Yeah. So if you want to get a little, just because that's something a lot of people might not think about, if you want to go a little more in depth on how that actually happens, the fire can just sit there burning underground, and then weeks later or whatever, it just pops back up.
They call them sleepers.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is you got to think about it. Whenever you have a stump burning, everybody here and your listeners have all went out and burned a stump or burned a limb. It takes that stuff days, if not weeks, to go out. So what happens, like some of the fires we had, you had let's say a 20, 30 acre fire burned through a piece of property. Well, the stumps, the limbs, all the snags are still burning. There's no way you can go in and put out every little flame or every little hot spot in a 20 acre block and still be able to contain the other fires. Now we go in and we do what they call mopping up, which is within a certain distance of our fire line, we try to clean up and make sure everything's out. But the interior stuff's real hard to do. It takes a lot of personnel to do that. So when that happens, you have a stump that's still sitting there smoldering, still sitting there burning. Well, when the pine needles and all the cast falls back down when the burn's done, week, 2 weeks later, it could potentially catch up again and cross your line. Now there's really not a whole lot we can do about that because we was in such an extended drought, that stuff that we haven't seen in Mississippi in years. It's just part of what happened with the catastrophic drought. And the I-10 fire, that happened one day. The needle cast came down. It had a restart. So we started monitoring that. We was monitoring it anyway. We had personnel on that fire at 8 a.m. and then it ended up restarting around 2 o'clock that day. So there's only so much watching you can do. I mean, as far as the fire weather and stuff,
right.
It was just whenever you ain't had rain in 6 weeks or so, it's just you're gonna have fires restart.
I hadn't even thought about the needle cast coming down on top of it and causing restarts over those same burned areas.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess typically on a normal right now, if you went out and burned, like I burned Friday. I think I burned Friday and then went out there Sunday and had a just old pine lighter knot just burning like it was the day I lit it. But I guess with the conditions we've got now, the ground's got water in it. It's not as dry as can be. Most of your fuel was burned off from the fire, so you don't have to worry. I mean, I know you always have to worry about it a little bit, but not near as much as last year when it was so dry.
Well, there's something called recovery, and not going to get into the weeds of the prescribed burn short course, but you learn about recovery. If you look at your weather and your humidity, if your humidity gets up to 95, 100% at night, well, that's called recovery. What it's doing is it's pretty much wetting all the fuels overnight, and it's giving it that recovery where your stumps and snags and stuff burning, where they're going to feel that recovery, and embers and stuff of a reignition is very unlikely if it's a high recovery at night.
Yeah.
So if you want to do any burning, just watch your recovery pretty close at night.
Yeah. So this is me being not as well versed as I need to be, but this is the best time for me to learn and remember. When you get a burn permit, it usually goes from let's just use 9 in the morning to maybe 5 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, something like that. Why? What makes up the cutoff time? Where does that come from?
Well, it's all your mixing height, your stag index, and pretty much all of that combined is what makes that cutoff time. So you might have a 4 o'clock cutoff time one day, like you said, or a 6 o'clock, but it's all got to do with the stag index and just the weather factors factoring.
So is there ever a time where, do you have to get 2 different permits as far as burning at night? I mean, is there ever a time where you get your permit in the morning and they're like, you're good to go?
No, it's going to have a cutoff time.
Okay.
We don't issue permits at night because of the weather factors are not there for the lift.
Yeah.
You got to have a mixing height that's so high, and at night you're not going to have that mixing height.
Well, that's a good thing to kind of talk about a little bit, because after started getting into it and watch, so on that stag index we're talking about, it's like a 0 to 3 scale, if I remember right, and that gives you like sun up to sundown, or an hour before to an hour after, or 2 hours before sunset you have to be mopped up. Anyway, there's a scale there you can look at, but you always hear people talking about, like, people always say, well, why don't you burn at night? Why don't you burn? That's when everybody used to burn. Everybody used to burn at night. And so I started paying attention to it a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I don't think what little bit I've paid attention to it, I was like, I don't know that I've ever seen the fire weather report show where you could get a permit at night. So is that something that,
and it's all about smoke lift,
right?
Anybody who has seen a night fire or had that prescribed burn go a little too late, the smoke's going to settle around that, dust time. It's going to settle. When it settles, it's going to start falling the creeks. It's going to start falling the low-lying areas. the smoke don't lift and get out of the air like it needs to. So that's why the no nighttime fires is.
Well, I guess a lot of people do that. It seems like a lot of people still burn at night, and they're probably just the ones that are just going out there lighting the woods up. But I guess it's because you can see the fire so much better, and you feel a little bit like you've got it more under control because you can see it so well. But
I mean, and the humidity is a little more predictable. You know, your wind is a little more predictable at night. If you are out there burning during the day and you have a 30% humidity with a 10-mile-an-hour wind, where it's going to shift on you, you might get a little spot during that. But at night, you're going to have a lot more humidity, and the wind's typically going to be a little lower during the night. So, I mean, I could see that.
Yeah. Okay. What you want to go into now, Austin? You know,
well, was there anything else on the fire prevention month? I mean, anything going on? Is there any programs, events, or anything like that that y'all do during that time that people can look for or watch for type deal?
Well, we are going to have some. We've got some advertising coming up for the prevention month, and we have a new tip video on preventing fires, and also a general just prevention commercial.
Gotcha.
So that'll be coming out, and that'll be on Facebook, and then also maybe some radio spots.
Okay,
talking
good deal.
about wildfire prevention.
yeah. So just before we move on from that, most people probably think they know, everything about preventing fire. But if you could give like 3 tips or something for our listeners on not being the one that started that forest fire.
1, don't burn on windy days. That's a big one.
Always watch your burn bans and your local weather.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, your burn bans and local weather, because that weather's going to tell you what that fire is going to do if you know a lot about fire.
And if you have a fire, always watch it. Don't leave it unattended.
Y'all may have, you don't have to call out a statistic if you don't have it in front of you, but I mean, when it comes to wildfires here, I mean, it's most all are people caused, right?
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans, and the number 1 cause of wildfires in Mississippi is debris burns, getting out of control.
Debris burns.
And the way it works, like a lot of our public don't know exactly how many fires we have per year. I mean, we post it on Facebook. Anytime you see us at a fair and event, we love to talk about it. It's kind of, our fire numbers are a little different than 2004. We work in physical years, but we're in FY24 now. But in FY23, we had 1,070 fires that burned over 19,000 acres. Well, just this year alone, we've already had over 1,700 fires that burned over 25,000 acres. We're in the heart of our fire season, but we're not in that March month yet.
Right.
So you got to think about that. We're already over 25,000 acres. So
I didn't realize
our numbers of last year.
Well, that's yeah, I want to go. That was one of the things I really want to talk about, was doing a deep dive into that. And we'll hop into that in just a second. Because I agree, and that was the reason I wanted to get y'all back in here to talk, which is, we touched on it a little bit last time, but it was just like, I don't know. I've lived here my whole life. Never really thought about in Mississippi, like how many wildfires happen here. So, but before I do that, was there anything new with the commission going on this year? Anything that we didn't talk? I mean, I meant to ask y'all that when we before we started jumping into stuff, but like there was did y'all have something new? We did wildfire prevention. Is there anything new going on this year within the commission?
Well, like we said, we're in the heart of our fire season. So, we have a lot of bulldozers. We have a lot of trucks. We have a lot of side-by-sides equipment that has to be maintained. So while we're fighting fires, we're also maintaining all that equipment. That's one of the biggest things that we have to do in between the fires. I mean, the tracks still have to be cleaned off. The dozer plow units still have to be greased. We're trying to maintain this tax bought equipment the best we can, and still be able to put out the fires, because that's your lifeline.
You got to have it serviceable. Yeah.
Yep. You got your rural fire departments and your structure fire departments. They got the big red trucks with the hose and water, but that's their lifeline. Same thing with us. Them bulldozers are our lifeline. So we try to take the best care that we can of that equipment.
Yeah, they're not taking that big red truck down a dirt road and making a fire lane. So that dozer's got to work when it needs to.
And I'm definitely not telling you that they're definitely a saving grace for us a lot of times with the water and stuff. We salute everything that our rural fire departments do. They help us out a lot. Some other things that we are getting ready to do, we're in the preliminary stages of our heavy equipment academy. And that's a big deal that we do every May. So that's something that we're getting into now.
So what is the?
Yeah, I was about to say, what is the Heavy Equipment Academy? Sounds like something that I might like.
Well, that's a good question. Well, it's for our employees.
Oh, okay.
And what we do is we have a Heavy Equipment Academy, and it's for our employees that are not our newer employees that are not as experienced on the bulldozer, but have a little bit of time, but just they need that extra push to really get comfortable with the bulldozer. I mean, we have a big hill out there that's a slope where they run the bulldozer up and down the hill. It's a specialized training for heavy equipment. They go into worst case scenario details with this table that, draws out fires and tells you how fast the fire can run, how slow it can run. So it's a specialized table for training. So they get into the weeds with that. We go out there and we actually teach recovery on bulldozers. So we intentionally get a bulldozer stuck in a certain specific area, and then they have to pull that bulldozer out because it's different. If you're out pushing a pad or you're out pushing out at your back 40 and, you're just out there casually pushing, you get stuck. It's not that big of a deal. But when you have a fire that's 1,000 acres coming at you, it's a big deal then. So it just helps our employees get those bulldozers in the right place at the right time and gives them a little bit more experience to help push them in that right direction.
And it's real big on safety too, because if you think about it, if this is happening to you in a wildfire situation, being able to stay calm and do what you need to do at the right time, it's critical. So doing it during this training and making the worst things happen to them, it's really good for when it does happen in the real fire situation. So
and that's a great point Meacham brings up. It's not just talking about heavy equipment. It is a heavy equipment academy, but there's something called an IWI, incident within an incident. Well, think about it. If you're on a fire and somebody gets hurt, how do you get that person out? What are you going to do? There's a protocol that you have to follow to help get that person out safely, and it goes through all that.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I was about to say, I'm about to cut a academy on heavy equipment.
You need to come talk to Smokey and see if you can't get a part-time job before
y'all should
May.
come to our VIP day. We always have a VIP day during that training, and
there you go.
We should invite y'all.
Yeah, invite us. We'll be there. Where is that out of Jackson?
It's in Raymond. This is at our Learned Mississippi. Actually, is the exact name, but this is where we have a training site, and it's our site, Mississippi Forestry Commission's, and that's where we do a lot of our training. So
and we utilize the site for ATV training. Hines, we're in collaboration with Hines. They do their logging certification out there. So Hines has really helped us out, with that site and everything else. But it's a specialized site for training.
We're training on that.
Even our U.S. Forest Service partners, they put on a big federal heavy equipment academy, and they utilize the site too through our partnership.
Okay.
Let's go ahead. Yeah, that's neat. So you get out there, you learn how to maneuver different terrain for people who are new to that, like how to handle dozers in different situations to get away from, with a fire breathing down your neck, or in the situation of fire breathing down your neck. But then you even get them purposely stuck and in different situations where they can learn how to work their way out of it.
Yeah, and I learned something new. I mean, because I'm there every year working on public information for it, but I learned something new every year, and I operated for 8 years. There's never, whenever at this job, whenever you say that you've learned everything, it's about time to quit.
Yeah.
Because there's always something you can learn. Especially me being from down south, I deal with a lot of flatlands. We do have some hills down there, but it's not what it is up in North Mississippi or around that, the Port Gibson area. So the hills part is something I really needed to work at and stuff. So I focused on that and did that a little bit more. So everybody, it don't matter how long you've operated, you can take something out of this class.
Yeah.
We even put them in a big mud pit.
Yes, I mean, I guess you can try your best to put them in a precarious situation, but I mean, obviously, you're never going to be able to put them in the situation where there's actually a fire heading their way. But
yeah, it's like practicing for anything else, though. You just need to have been seeing a similar situation.
Well, it's just like football. I mean, when you're practicing at football, you don't want to take all the hits that you have to take in a game time situation, but it's the closest we can to putting those employees in the real world scenario.
Yeah.
And we have a night ops also where we actually have had live fire, and they're out there and they have a situation scenario type thing, and they've got to get out of it.
Cool.
put the fire out or get the safety, you know, when needed.
Yeah.
You want to check that?
I'm going to. I was going to let you jump down into the effect of timber on drought.
Okay.
And I'm going to fix this camera.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we mentioned the drought a few times earlier, so we'll save wildfires for last. But I mean, last year, like we said, started in Mississippi, I guess probably started creeping into the state from southwest corner and started moving up and across. And we had it affected the fire it affected the fire season like you talked about. And then I guess on the other side, the timber side. So I know there was y'all just started a pine mortality study. I know I just have noticed from like riding around or even talking to people that live in that area with like beetle issues or just kill from the drought. I mean, I know this summer as I was riding around and was kind of planning on trying to get y'all back in here. I was like, well, this is something we need to talk about. So
it's a big issue. So we've had a lot of landowners having dead trees on their property, and everybody's very concerned and wondering what to do and what can they do. And so we've started a survey with the Southern Research Station, and they've gone out and done an inventory, that sort of thing. And then you've also got power companies that are cutting, you know, right-of-ways, all the dead trees, because that's a, you know, conflict with them. But you're seeing all these dead trees driving down the road, and it's affected a certain area of the state more so than others. And it's basically the southwest corner up to the central part of the state and everything in between. But these dead trees first you had the drought, right? And that weakens the trees and it makes them become more susceptible to beetles. And so when the beetles come in, which they come in with the warmer temperatures, and the cold weather doesn't really knock them out, but the cold weather does help.
Okay.
So if you have a really cold, you know, winter,
right,
then you might not have a very bad spring beetle season. But, you know, the drought really has brought those beetles in this time.
Gotcha.
And then we worry even more so, you know, after these beetles have come in and are killing these trees, and then we come into the spring, you know, what's going to happen then? How many more dead trees are we going to have? And so we're looking to see a lot more, actually.
So is it
pine mortality?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is it kind of all year? We weaken the tree with the drought and then the beetles move in. Is it a certain beetle that's worse, southern pine or the Ips? Or
So what we're seeing is southern pine beetle and Ips beetle. And the two they're both bad, but the Ips beetle, you can, if you're a landowner and you're seeing some beetle damage, you can look at the bark, and under the bark you'll see a Y-shaped gallery if you have Ips. And then if you have southern pine beetle, it'll be an S-shaped gallery. So that's one way you can tell the difference. And then we've also been seeing a little bit of both in like the same stand of trees. So that's kind of concerning, because if you had southern pine beetle, you would want to lay down those trees with a 100-foot buffer. Okay. And then if you had Ips, you really don't want to have any disturbance in that area, because that makes them become more active.
Gotcha.
But if you wait until they're dormant, which is when a cold spurt, like the cold weather would come in, then that would be a good time to cut those trees down. But that's kind of not realistic, because of we had 3 days of cold weather, and then it's back to 70, 80 degrees. So that's kind of hard to plan.
So when you're talking about like determining which one's which, like when you pull the bark back, if you're looking at it, you're talking about like pull the bark back and kind of where the candium layer would be is what you're looking at.
Yeah, so you'll see the little galleries. You know, it's very noticeable. And if it's S-shaped, southern pine beetle, Y-shaped, Ips.
S for southern.
That's right.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to go out there and look at a tree that's been dead for 3, 4, 5 weeks. You want to find the one that's still got a little bit of green on it, that's still kind of trying to fight it. That's the one that you really want to determine if it's Ips or southern pine, because there are other animals, critters, bugs that can get in there and make a little bit of galleries. So you want to try to find that, I hate to say this, but the newest dead tree to look at, and that'll really tell you what you got.
So is that usually, I'm assuming that if it's as it's spread, you kind of have is it usually like a leading edge where they tend to be going in a certain direction, or are they just spreading out from a radius all?
you're seeing a lot of them on the edges, and then they jump into like the middle of the stand in like a little cluster type.
And it's kind of, if you have a buddy that has a drone or have a drone yourself, if you look at it from there, you can see which way that if it's southern pine especially, you can see which way it's going.
Okay.
And it's predominant if you have a predominant north wind like we do during deer season, where they're going to be moving with that wind.
That's what I was wondering, was if they moved like just in a circular expanse.
The
out
southern
of the
pine
center,
beetle does.
or
Yips, not so much.
But an Yips may follow more of a wind direction.
Well, that like I said, but you want to get on that barrier with those newest trees that got infected. And you'll see where it looks like the sap's coming out trying to fight at those cones on the outside. That's the one that you really want to look at and try to figure out where them bore holes are.
So you have pitch tubes on the outside that look kind of like popcorn, and that's a good sign. Or it's not a good sign; it's a bad sign. But it definitely, that's beetle activity right there.
And so just staying on bugs for a minute. I know there's no science to this probably, but how quickly can they take over a stand if they're left unchecked?
It depends on there's a lot of factors in there. So technically, can't really answer that question because there's so many factors in it. It depends on thickness of timber. It depends on if your tree has been stress stricken in the past year. I mean, you could have somewhere where you put a road in and that could affect the borderline tree. So there's just so many factors to answer that question.
Yeah. What about, is there you mentioned kind of like a season to it earlier. I'm assuming is there seasonality to the beetles coming in? And is that something where it happens like a couple times a year as they, I guess, are lay eggs or whatever and are reborn? I mean, I would assume
it's just going to be more during your stress periods for your trees.
Yeah. During the summertime stress periods, the worst time, the peak of it. We do a flight survey over the whole state in the fall and in the spring, so we can see that gap if there's been any new spots formed over the summer and that. So we do 2 flights statewide to try to get a survey of the southern pine beetle infestation.
And they're putting traps out in March also.
Beetle traps? What are those?
Yeah, that's, you gotta go into that.
It's pretty much, I mean, it's hard to explain, but it's a piece of plastic trap that specializes in catching southern pine beetles. Well, the way the pine beetle works is the female bores into the tree, lays a pheromone, and that's what the males come in and say, hey, this is my new home.
Yeah.
And then the males put out a pheromone that tell the other males to stay away. So in the trap, you put out the female pheromone. And that's what tells all the males to come in, and that's how we trap the beetles. And it's not to try to lower the infestation. It just lets us know the areas that they're in, lets us know how bad they are. If you check a trap and it's full of pine beetles, you got an issue.
Mm-hmm.
If you check a trap and it might have 1 or 2, well, you have an issue, but it's still not as bad as it. So it just lets us know the rate that they're in there.
Yeah. I had never heard of that. I guess it's similar to the way you would trap a beehive. Fairly similar, but I'd never heard of trapping beetles.
Yeah, same thing. It's all smells, and little animal or little beetle that big can smell pretty good apparently.
So is it like just trying to think to explain to people, like I'm assuming, so there's I guess there's a normal like resident density kind of spread out everywhere, and then it becomes a problem when they get overabundant in an area, or is it that they're just like nomadic and are moving between place to place? I mean, is it something that there's kind of like there's always going to be just a handful around?
Well, it all comes down to your tree's health, basically. And if you've got crowded trees, if you haven't thinned, you're going to see, you have a much better chance of seeing pine beetle activity. And so we definitely stress to thin your trees and keep them healthy and not weakened or susceptible. And because that's when you're going to see the beetles. I mean, that's what brings them in, is a weakened tree.
So are we seeing any issues right now or any more issues with beetles because of the lack of pulpwood market, people not being able to thin? And
very well could definitely play a part.
I'm not going to say that that's not factoring. I think it's more the stress trees more than anything.
But the stress is coming from not thinning. So the crowd being crowded.
Well, just kind of like everything just hitting it at once right now. The drought from last year and not being able to get people in there to thin it. And
that's right.
So
I think it's, honestly, I hate to say a perfect storm, but I think, like you said, with the unthinned pine plantation, because of the market, with the drought situations, I think it's a perfect system for the southern pine beetle. And if you look at what we've had over this winter, we haven't had a big long freeze. I mean, we had a few days to a week,
3 days,
but it ain't been a month of freezing every night. So, so that's going to hurt a little bit.
So this summer, be paying attention to your pine trees because it could get hairy.
We tell people here at the Mississippi Forestry Commission to always monitor your pine trees or any tree that you're looking to get an investment on, or you want to, like Meacham said, you want to keep your trees as healthy as possible. If you got cattle, you don't just put them out in the field and leave them for 3 months. Trees, it takes long-term goals. So you want to make sure that your investment is always watch your trees. Always call your forester too.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, they're there to help you.
Yeah.
So
and their advice is free. So, but one thing to look for with the trees and starting to see something, the first signs is going to be a lightening of the pine trees, the needles. It's going to be like a light green color, and that's it's kind of hard to see at the very top of your trees if you're not looking from above. But that's kind of how we see it from when we do our flights.
Yeah, talking about flights is kind of not really off topic, I don't guess. But I would say if you are trying to invest in timber or have a timber investment, a drone now is about the best technology you could buy to manage your timber stand or to keep an eye on your timber stand.
Yeah, drones is, we're just now touching the surface at the Mississippi Forestry Commission what drones can really do. I mean, if I had a big block of land and I didn't already have a drone with the Mississippi Forestry Commission, I would definitely own one.
Yeah.
You can see things from the air. Now make sure you're looking at the laws and everything before you get a drone. But yeah, you can definitely see things. I mean, it could even be erosion issues close to, like if you're close to the Port Gibson area, you can see new erosion that's happening after a big rain. You can see creeks that might be, kind of washing out. If you have a logger on your property, you can see where they might cross them SMZs affecting your best management practices. I mean, you can see all that from there. So it's definitely
checking for beaver flood, checking for storm damage. Yeah. We've used them for checking fence lines after storms. Just it's a quicker way to just run through and see what's going on.
Another good thing thinking about this time of year is if you have, if you're not a turkey hunter, but you might have your buddy or somebody leasing your property for hunting. So, hey, look, while you're out there looking up for the gobbler, make sure that you checking the trees, tell them to look, like Meacham said, the brown spots. If you notice any dead trees, hey, throw some flagging around them for me real quick so I can go out there and look at them.
Yeah.
So, use your assets to help you out. If you're letting somebody turkey hunt on your property, have him doing a wellness check on your timber.
Yeah. I mean, I find more stuff to do with my property during turkey season than any other time of the year, just because I'm out walking it more than
trying to be quiet, putting the boots on the ground. So you get to see more that way.
Yep. Well, we won't go into depth, but because we're already at 45, but I just want to touch on Cogan grass for a minute because I've been finding a good bit at my place lately. I've been doing some spraying, but I've had a lot of people ask me questions about it. So just kind of want to, what's the commission doing about Cogan grass? What can a landowner do about Cogan grass? Maybe how to know if it is Cogan grass, just kind of go into it for a little bit.
So we offer a treatment program to help you control it, but it's not an eradication program. But the landowner that has it needs to come up with an eradication treatment plan for themselves. And we can help them with that. We can even give them a head start on that process by signing up for our Cogan grass program. And that's where we'll have one of our Cogan grass forest health persons come out to your property and GPS the different spots that you have. So going out and kind of marking those spots would be helpful. And then they'll come back and we contract this out to different vendors, and they'll come and spray it. And then they say they might make a second treatment. So we just kind of have to wait and see how that rolls out. But
is that a for fee service?
No, it's a free
service.
Free service, but you got to apply during the right time when it opens up, and it takes a little while, but they're coming.
Yeah,
you might think that they've forgotten about you.
I've sent in my application. I haven't heard anything back yet,
and they also target certain counties at certain times.
About like the
kind of move it around,
burn money and all that. Just kind of wherever's the most important at the time.
But one herbicide treatment is not enough, and you're not going to kill your Cogan grass. It's going to take years of continuous treatments.
You want to go into ID in it?
Sure.
Well, to ID it, I mean, it's a very invasive grass. Let's get that out of the way. But it grows in a circular pattern, and it can really grow in timber stands, in pasture right of ways, just anywhere that it seeds in. And the seed is a white, fluffy ball on top of the grass in the spring, and it'll fall off, and that's where you start getting the problems because that seed head can fly a long way or through wind driven stuff. Birds, if you drive your tractor through a piece of Cogan grass, well, you just got it all over your bush hog, all over your rims, and then you're going to carry it throughout your property. So that's where the IDing is very important. If you pick a piece of that leaf off of the Cogan grass and you feel of it, it kind of feels like a sawbriar. Like you can feel the briary on it. And if you look, the vein, which is normally in the center of most of your leaves, is offset. That's an ID that helps you. But mainly it's that circular pattern and the feel of it that you can tell. And if you don't know, call your local forester, let him come ID it because you're definitely going to know that it's on your property.
Yeah, and I think right now is a good time to ID it because it just sticks out like a sore thumb right now. I mean, it's so much thicker than any other grass we've got around here, it seems like.
Yeah, and I mean, the volatility of it is, I've seen fire 2 foot, just kind of creeping along a timber stand. If it hits a patch of dried out Cogan grass like it is this time of year, you're going to get 20, 30 foot flame inside of it. It's very volatile fuel, and it's all one root system potentially. I mean, if it's a big patch, it might be a few root systems.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when they spray it, old terminology is if this kills it, if I double it, it's got to kill it. Don't do that with Cogan grass. Yeah. It's in the ribosomes of the roots. It's going to cut itself off. Spray what it says on the bottle. It really helps out.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, too, there's not really anything that can just target Cogan grass. I mean, isn't that right? I mean, you're pretty much going to have to kill everything in that little area which I was talking to somebody about the other day, and it's going to choke everything else out anyway if you don't spray it, I guess. So you might as well just kill it all and knock it out as quick as you can.
Yeah, and like she said, it's going to be, you can't just go out and spray a patch of Cogan grass. Onyx Hunt's the biggest thing that really helps out, or some of your other mapping apps. Just make sure you got that area mapped and go check it.
Yeah.
If you start noticing it greening back up in the spring, spray it again. It's one of those things you want to stay diligent on it. And if you've had it on one spot, you more than likely have it on multiple spots. So that's where that walking your property is going to really help out.
Yeah.
And the 2 chemicals used to treat the Cogan grass is imazapyr and glyphosate. And you do not want to use imazapyr on hardwoods.
Yeah.
So got to be aware of that.
Do you alternate those treatments of those as it takes multiple years so you don't build up a resistance, or is that a mix of the 2 that you use typically?
Glyphosate is it's a foliar active treatment, and then the imazapyr gets more into the
root system.
Yep.
Well, what we did a few years ago when we was under the grant system with it, it just came down, and the public could come get chemical. Then a few years ago, we was actually mixing imazapyr and glyphosate.
Okay.
A certain mixture of each, and the glyphosate's going to brown that leaf quickly. It's just like Roundup you spray out in your yard, but then a day it's going to kind of be brown. Well, your imazapyr is more of a root killer. It's going to take it time to soak in. It's going 2 weeks later, you might walk out there and say, hey, I didn't touch this stuff. Let it do its work. It's going to take it a minute to seep in. They'll start turning brown. It's not like the glyphosate where you're going to see it, or the Roundup chemical, you're going to see it quickly.
Yeah.
The imazapyr is going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah. And I would say if you're not confident, I don't know if I want to say it that way, but be careful with the imazapyr.
Always read the herbicides.
It will kill anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Glyphosate, you can be a little more, I don't want to say reckless, but you can be a little more reckless, I feel like, with that than.
I agree.
There's more margin for error, I think is the better way to say it.
And you want to think about water runoff too with the imazapyr.
Yeah.
Because where you spray it, if you spray it on a Tuesday and it rains on a Wednesday, if there's still any chemical residual left over, it could affect your watershed too. So that's just something you got to be cautious of also. So that's like you said, if you're not competent in spraying herbicides, make sure that you do your research on it before you do it. Because the worst thing we want is it to get in our watershed system, because that's not good for anybody.
Yeah. Always read the chemical labels, because if you do it and it's the wrong place, wrong stuff, then it can harm a site for a long time.
Yeah. So I guess just kind of, ending that on Cogan grass. If you think you've got some, like you said, call your local forester, or if you know you've got some, need to get it taken care of.
Didn't y'all
spray it
start
yourself.
Didn't y'all start a thing last year to report invasives like that? Isn't there a link or app or something to report?
There is on our website, and that started with Help Stop the Pop with the popcorn trees.
The popcorn trees.
Yep.
Okay.
But we also have it for just forest health invasive species altogether. Now you can put anything on there.
Okay.
Yep.
I was thinking
that's what I was going to say. Y'all's website is, and that's going to be for everything, for looking up fire weather if you want to, for getting the number to request a burn permit, requesting assistance with invasives, all that. So
pretty much a one-stop shop.
It is.
Yeah. You can do anything. And as far as the reporting system, what it helps, the reporting system, the more that our public can report the popcorn tree, any kind of invasives, what that does, that's going to help us with the grant system. We need to know the data on how much is out there. We know Cogan grass issue.
Yeah.
But if we have data to back that up, other than what we produce, it really helps everybody out.
Yeah.
Especially helps our public out.
Yeah. Well, and if, I guess that's talking about your grant program, that's a lot of the way y'all probably determine what area needs the most assistance, is how much is getting reported in that area. So, well, Austin, that's all I've got. Unless let's do
wildfires. That's what I wanted to get them in here for. That's what I kind of wanted to talk about.
Well, you go ahead. I feel like we've been talking about wildfires for 30
We
minutes.
haven't told any stories about it yet, or what was like. I mean, what was as we've been talking, I guess, kind of vaguely about it. I mean, what are you seeing big one? I know. Is it the coast? Is it spread out? Is it? I mean, what do we see with Mississippi wildfires?
Well, we can have big wildfires statewide. So I'm not going to say, oh, it's only the coast, or oh, it's only the Tupelo area. We can have them. It all depends on the weather. Now, predominantly our coastal counties have the bigger fires because of the marshes and the flatter grounds. But pretty much they can happen statewide.
Well, I would think, this could be completely wrong, I would think the coastal region would be more equipped to handle, or that landscape type would be more equipped to handle fire than more northern. Would that be right or wrong? Just with with more longleaf and more kind of prairie type.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only thing is with the bulldozers and stuff that we use to fight fire, like if it gets in a marsh that's 1,000 acres, we pretty much have to contain it within that marsh. We can't. Yeah. Bulldozers don't float.
I've been on a fire on the coast where I was in water up to my chest, and then there was a bulldozer that was stuck, and the fire all around us burning.
Well, a lot of people.
It was crazy.
A lot of people don't think when you had that marshland. Everybody here's seen the marsh. They've been out redfish and stuff. Mm-hmm. They know exactly what it looks like. Well, you have water 4 or 5 foot deep, but then you have all the grass on top of it. Well, if you don't get a big diversity in your fluctuation of water, where it gets over that grass daily, it's going to dry it out. And a fire can just carry right over that water by using the grass.
Yeah.
What was the biggest fire last year? You know what that was?
I believe it was the I-10 fire, and I might be mistaken on this, but the biggest fire that I was actively involved in was around 3,000 acres.
Yeah. So
that was the one that they closed down I-10. Now, they might have been a bigger one that I didn't hear about or didn't know about. I think that's the largest one.
That was the biggest one I remember. But like I said, I just tried to keep up with it last year, just after we had talked, and it just kind of stood out. So, what is there kind of an average size to fires in Mississippi like that when they're considered a wildfire?
Yeah, statewide, with any fire that is uncontrolled is a wildfire.
Okay.
If it is not being monitored, if it's not being contained, then it is a wildfire. If it's out of control, so anything, it could be half an acre. If we don't have a containment on it, or the rural fire departments or the public don't have a containment on it, it's wild. So that's the definition of a wildfire. But our average wildfire in the state's around 26 acres. Now that's statewide.
Okay.
It's around 26 acres. What we say a large scale wildfire is around 100 to 200 acres. That's what we start getting into what we call a big fire, as far as with the Mississippi Forestry Commission. And it's not unheard of that we have 4,000 or 5,000 to 6,000 acre fires or more a year that go in excess of that. You're not going to see, you could potentially see it. I'm not going to say not, because, don't ever say never. Yeah. But where you see the 200, 300, 400,000 acre ones out in California, look, 77% of Mississippi is privately owned. Mm-hmm. Well, you look out at what California, Colorado, 80 to more percent is federally publicly owned. So that's the difference in the diversity that we have here that they have out there. So we're, all y'all hunters, there's not very many places that don't have a 4-wheeler trail, that don't have a food plot. Somewhere we can cut that off. And our river system's a little bit more diverse than that.
Probably a more actively managed forest here.
Well, and that, I guess, just real quick, that'd be one of the main reasons why I don't go ahead and get your permit when you're going to burn, where at least y'all are aware of it. Because if somebody's burning and their fire jumps its lane, or they're getting nervous, think it's out of control, I mean, what's the steps? Do they need to call the volunteer fire department first? Do they need to get in touch with y'all first?
If you have a burn permit already, or you're doing any outdoor burning, the first thing you do is call 911. Let them know, hey, I got a fire that's out of control, because they might be able to get there quicker. They might be able to contain it with their structure trucks first, and that's going to save a whole lot of headache with you on the big end. And then if you have a burn permit, you already have the number to call. We know where you're at. We know where you're burning. Then call us.
Yeah.
Make those 2 phone calls to make everybody aware. But the main thing is 911. Get the quickest people out you can. They know how to notify us. When they get there, they'll notify us if we're needed.
And don't waste time. If it's out of control, it's out of control. Don't think you can get it back.
I've seen a fire in South Mississippi. When I pulled up, it was roughly an acre, 2 acres. It takes me 5 minutes to unload the bulldozer. By the time I actively got a bulldozer on it, it was 15 to 20 acres. So that's how fast a fire can grow here in the state of Mississippi.
And our crews are not just right there. They might be across the county, or, further away than they were last week. So it depends on how far they've got to travel also.
Yeah, when our fire danger when it's picking up and we know there's wildfire, we try to have people staged into the proper areas. But, we're still managing 480,000 acres for a 16-section school board. We're still out helping the private landowner, doing landowner visits. So I mean,
your job's not fighting fire. You're having to do that on top of everything else that you already have to do.
And so the equipment that's allocated to you, it's not just sitting there in reserve waiting to go on a fire run. It's being used to fee for service type event.
Water bars on properties, or put fire lanes in when there's not a fire, of course.
And we're still being, we are, common sense tells you when you're having 4 or 5 fires in the area, we're going to kind of plan for that.
Yeah.
We're not going to have somebody way off on DeSoto, in the middle of DeSoto National Forest on a private land on a pushing that day. We're going to make sure that we try to put the proper puzzle pieces in the right place.
Yeah.
And that's what was so crucial during our wildfire season this past go round, is putting crews and, staging people at the right place at the right time. And that became a big deal. And I'll let Kevin go into more depth on that.
Well, the way we do it, like I said, July, they started noticing that drying trend. So our southern area was the one that, hit the drought quicker. So they started staging in our northern resources from Region 1, Region 2, around the Tupelo area, that area there. They started staging them in, and they staged in Wiggins and Brookhaven. So we had a few more extra bulldozers than we'd normally have. We had experienced employees to run them down here. And that really did help out our fire situation in South Mississippi. And we continued that till the drought hit statewide, and they had to move back. And that's when we went to the Southern Area Compact, or out-of-state help. Now, a little backstory, the state of Mississippi, we normally send our employees out during the summer to help. We send people to Texas and other states that need assistance, Kentucky. We needed it this year. So their employees out of 6 states really helped us, and they the one that assisted us this year in our wildfires.
So, it sounds like you're talking about the acres burned already this year versus last year. Knock on wood, it's not the case, but it sounds like we may need some help again.
And what did you say that was already this year? How many fires did you say that was already this year? I know you just mentioned it earlier. You don't have to go back.
So as of right now, since July 1, we've had over 1,700 fires that burned over 25,000 acres so far. And that's rounded up, rounded down numbers. And we're not even we're in our wildfire season, but March, we're not into the brunt of it yet.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get a lot of rain and a lot of wetter times to where those numbers kind of stay low.
Or not, but like 50 days into the year. Since y'all start over on a calendar year, that's what was. I know. Seasonally,
we said from July 1st, right?
Yeah, July 1st.
Yeah. That's when our fiscal year starts.
Okay. I thought y'all said y'all.
We go by fiscal years.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's the one thing about our fire numbers is they have to go to the physical year. So we're in the FY24 now, where we started FY24 July 1st to 2023.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So those
Okay.
numbers are higher
Yep,
because of the
yep.
drought
Okay.
in August.
Yes,
I'm with you.
And 24,000 of those or more was in the month of August, September, and October.
Yeah.
So a lot of the brunt of that, but like I said, last in FY23 we had 19,000 acres, over 19,000. So we're already surpassed those.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fire.
What,
but it's a planning process. Like I said, we got people in place. You know, our fire management officers, our dispatchers, our firefighters. We're all watching the weather and hoping. You know, we do have a wetter year, but we're planning. I hate to say it, but it's kind of plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yep. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
no
that's all you
wildfire.
can do, especially with something like that.
Yeah, no wildfire is the same. I can go to a wildfire in Texas, a wildfire in Mississippi, a 10-acre, a 5-acre. I've never been to the same fire twice. They're always different. You can have a fire one day on the same piece of property and it jump your line or get uncontained. It's going to be a different fire. No fire is going to be the same. So that's where training and our training comes into place with it. You got to be experienced in what you're doing, and that's what the fires really. I hate to say it, the more fire we had, the more experienced employees we had.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything else that y'all want to just kind of mention while y'all are on here, did that scratch your wildfire itch?
A little bit. What about was there? How does that usually flow into like structure damage? I mean, do y'all have any C numbers? I mean, casualties or structure damages or property? Obviously, it's property damage, just burning across your property. But like, I guess I'm more so thinking about structures and cars and that kind of stuff.
A lot of times, the structure fires caused a lot of the
There-
wildfires.
Okay, so that's the way you're seeing some
we
of it.
saw that happen, and then we also saw a lot in the pastures with cutting hay.
Okay.
And they lost a few pieces of equipment, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do calibrate those numbers. If there's a house threatened, we do capture that number. If there's a house that's been damaged, an outbuilding that's been damaged or destroyed, deer stands, we do capture all those numbers. So at the end of the FY, if you look at our end of the physical year, we'll have those numbers out for the public.
Yeah.
We were fortunate though not to have any casualties or injuries within our agency also as firefighters. So that was a blessing.
And I want to hit on this. And we had people come from out of state. We had South Carolina. I know I'm going to miss one, so I'm going to try not to name all of them, but now that I started, so I have to. South Carolina, we had Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, and Arkansas. So they came and helped us. But we're all NWCG trained, is what it's called, NWCG certified. So every wildland firefighter that fights fire nationwide has to have this specific type of training. And that allows us to do what we do in different states and stuff.
And all be on the same page.
Yeah, when we came down, the terminology is all basic terminology. It's all the same. So when they came down, it was, within a day or two, we was working as a fine oil machine.
Yeah.
And that says a lot for out-of-state resources that came and assisted us too. So, yeah, I'll say congratulations to them because they all did a good job for us.
Yeah. And it's good to have them when you need them. Like you say, usually we don't. They're out of states needing y'all, and but when you need them, it's good. So,
Well, I'll let you move on from fires. That'll be fine.
well,
I'm good. I can sit here and ask questions forever. That's
well,
why
I know you just the problem is you just want stories. You just want
that's why
wildfire stories.
I do. I like hearing.
You
stories.
want horror stories. Is what
I don't
you
want horror stories. I like hearing people's stories. That's why I do this.
That's the good thing about this fire season. As bad as it was, we had employees running pretty hard, and we don't have any bad horror stories.
Yeah.
That could happen.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
We could have talked, about worse stuff as far as that could have happened. So we got lucky. Our training, our safety really, really played paramount, and we was glad not to have any bad stories.
But we got some good video footage and pictures of live fire than we've ever gotten before. So we had a good collection now.
What is y'all's, off the top of y'all's head, do you know, or you may have it written down, y'all's Instagram handle? Because y'all do have a bunch of stuff on there as far as when you've got wildfires in certain areas and all that.
Yes, we have Instagram, Facebook, and a Twitter, and then YouTube also. And our Instagram name is Kevin.
I don't.
We'll post it in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah, that's I don't know the actual handle because
I think it's MF.
I'm not an Instagrammer.
Forestry. MS Forestry.
I think that sounds right.
We'll post it in the show notes. We'll post all the links if you want to go follow or watch videos on YouTube or any of that.
Our Facebook, just Mississippi Forestry Commission, we post a lot of stuff on there, especially when the wildfires start picking up more. You know, we'll try to document as much as we can in certain areas, especially like the I-10 fire. We was posting stuff on that. We try to post events that we're at to where you could come and talk to your outreach officer or certain foresters. It's really good to follow us on Facebook.
Yeah, well, and it's good to see. I don't know if "good's" the right word, but it's nice to be able to see like where wildfires are and that y'all are getting them under control, because they're not getting as big as they do out west, and they're not around all those houses usually, so you're not getting the big media attention, and so people probably don't even know that there is wildfires all the time in Mississippi. But if you follow y'all's stuff, you'll see that.
So I looked it up. Their Instagram is MS Forestry Com. That's COMM is the so MS Forestry Com is the handle. And I don't know if I'm not even on the camera, but I'm glad to see Bully was with Smokey the Bear. If Beau's school even had like a physical mascot, they might take a picture.
Yeah, and Smokey will be at the USM ball game on March the 2nd. He's going to do some Shuckers games, some Ole Miss games, and he was at the Mississippi State ball game last Saturday. Smokey's traveling.
He's getting around.
He's
been hitting a lot of events. He was at the Ag and Outdoor Expo this past weekend, and then before that, the Dixie Nationals.
Oh, yeah.
We were in the parade, and it was a good time.
Heck yeah.
Smokey's traveling pretty big.
This is big birthday year.
That's right.
But other thing is just, if you're looking for a career in forestry, make sure that you look us up. We have it on our website. We have it on post job openings on our Facebook. So just be sure to look that up if you're looking for a career in forestry. Especially with the state, it's a good career to be in as far as long term.
As far as educational requirements, are y'all hiring forestry techs? Are y'all hiring mainly 4-year foresters? Or?
Well, we have we have vacancies in all regions. But our forest rangers is our most least experienced job to come in as, and that's you have to have a you have to have a high school diploma or a GED in order to get that job, and then we train you on the job.
Okay.
And with that one, you got to be able to obtain the CDL.
Okay.
You don't have to have it. We help you, we assist you with all it, but you got to be able to get a CDL in the future because your main job is one day be on that bulldozer, be in that truck.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have any forestry school with that job. Now, forest technicians, we are hiring them with a 2-year degree, associate's degree from a 2-year college that has a forestry program, and then our foresters are being hired with a 4-year university forestry degree.
Okay. Well, I know we've got some foresters. I can think of some off the top of my head that I know will be listening. Forestry techs and 4-year foresters. So.
And for your listeners, like, some people, they might not be like me. They might not want to go beat the briars and the bushes, and they might not have a love for the outdoors. We got so many job openings other than field work.
Yeah.
We have GIS people, which requires a little bit of college and stuff, but we also have dispatchers. We have HR people. The ball's got to keep rolling.
Yeah.
And these people that are in the offices that are helping us, the dispatcher, well, if I don't know where the fire's at, I don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
So our dispatchers are intricate people that really help us out. So just be sure to look that up.
And you said that's on your website too, y'all's job openings?
Yep, all job openings we have with the website. You can always look up the State Personnel Board. It's a good website to look, but we post everything on our Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a tab that says careers. Look for that.
Good deal.
Well, I'm good. Unless y'all have anything else y'all want to add.
Well, we just, we're happy y'all had us, and thank y'all. And remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
That's right, as Smokey would say.
Well, I'm glad y'all came.
I'm glad I was able to be in here this time. Glad y'all didn't come when I wasn't here. So,
well, we had to do it before turkey season started, so we could keep you in here.
That's right. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Go follow the Mississippi Forestry Commission. We'll post the ats on the show notes. We'll post our ats too. And thank you for following along. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks.